marketologist. This is another marketing strategy session. Today, I have Chanel with me, and she's going to talk about things that you're interested in. I know everybody's interested in social media and influencer marketing and all these ways to drive traffic, but she's going to actually talk about how to look at the right people to talk to and how to get in front of them the right way. I mean, we're so inundated with all these tricks and hacks and techniques of getting all these views, and we think that we're doing something, but when it comes to business, at the end of the day, it's a little bit deeper than that. So Chanel, thanks for coming on today's show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be, at this point in your career.
Sure. So I started my agency now. It's almost 9 years. It'll be 9 years in June. It wasn't something that I even intended on doing. It just kind of fell into my lap and it happened and it grew over time. I actually started off just trying to brand myself as a communicator and a media professional.
Mhm.
And so that's where the brand of Bright Girl Media comes from. And then from there, it just kind of took on a life of its own. And so I'm excited. I've watched social media kind of grow from its infancy. I tell people I've been on social media. I started way back in what would be called ancient years now with MySpace.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was in graduate school at the time and MySpace was popping. And I had some friends who were, they were musicians, they were artists.
Okay.
And, just trying to get out there and promote themselves. And my background is in media and communications and, journalism and things like that. And so, I was using the medium of the time to get them out there and get them promoted. And that was my first taste of being on social media and using it as a marketing platform.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just kind of evolved from there. So I've seen the comings and goings of, a couple different not only trends are here all the time, but platforms that came and went and everything else. So
Okay. So being that you have a background in communication and journalism, I know it's probably somewhat, I don't know the word for it. I'm trying not to say words like painful and things like that, to look at the way social media has been portrayed. I'm not going to say it's evolved this way, but been portrayed as you can do a silly dance, a comedy, or this or that, and the content is not really at a professional level, and you're coming from a pretty much a skill that
mhm.
it's like, no, this is how we do it in a business atmosphere. And they're like, well, no, I need a cat that can play a piano, that can stand up on his back two legs, because the last person had 2 million views that had that type of post.
Yeah.
How do you get past that?
Let me tell you that it's funny that you even bring this up, and most people don't even bring it up or think about it from that angle of for a long time, yes, it was painful for me and it actually held me back because I know what it's like to be on set and actually produce quality content. I know what it's like to, script things and, pre produce things and all that stuff, editing, like the whole nine from, start to finish. And so that was the box that I was placed in. That was my mindset. And so every time I got ready to create content, it was this whole process in my mind that I had to go through. And if it wasn't done like that, I didn't feel like it was good enough.
Mhm.
And so it held me back because other people were just jumping in front of a camera and just doing stuff and saying stuff and just being authentic. And I was trying to produce everything and make everything look polished and nice because I know how to do that. And so if you would have asked me this question a couple years ago, I probably would have said it's painful.
Mhm.
Now I say to anybody who might be like me, um, go with it because
Okay.
it's here. It's not going to change. If anything, it's going to get more raw and less produced.
Okay.
And so we just have to roll with it. Now, what I will say from a journalistic standpoint, which has nothing to do with the marketing piece, well, it kind of does. It kind of
Mhm.
does. What I don't like is um, the lack of integrity that goes behind a lot of things that get put out.
Okay.
I'll say that because it's so quick. You know, you have to get something out. You have to get a story out. You have to say DMX died and he still ain't dead. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
that's the part that bothers me in my journalistic mindset. But other than that, you know, if people like to connect with people, and that's really what social media is. It's about being social. It's about connecting. It's about feeling like you know people that you don't even know.
Okay.
And so just go with it. Be authentic.
So I think that is a hard hurdle, especially for businesses. When it comes to you're looking at, you want the old school commercial, you want it to be very polished, and in social media is more about being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
and that's hard. So for a person to be authentic, it's not easy, but you have to know yourself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be that. For a business to be authentic, it's it's a little bit challenging because a lot of businesses they don't really have a culture. I mean, they kind of like, we just want revenue. This is what we
Mm-hmm.
offer. We want money.
Yep.
So they haven't established a culture. Like Chick-fil-A has established a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows Chick-fil-A is Christian based. Everybody knows they're not
Yes.
open on Sunday. Everybody knows that they're funny with the cow and to eat more chicken, you know, but that's their culture,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But other companies, they just like, I don't know, we sell this, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard because it's hard for a business to be authentic when you haven't established what that even looks like.
I agree. I tell people, and it's funny that you use Chick-fil-A because I always use Chick-fil-A as an example because not just their brand persona as far as their commercials and everything and their billboards that we see, but even the experience that you feel when you get there.
Yeah.
It's a brand. And so when you go to some of these other places and like you said, they haven't cultivated that, they may not have really dug into who their audience is and what their audience needs or wants from them,
Mm-hmm.
then you look at them and you find them kind of riding all the waves and the trends, and then it's like it feels like pandering, and
Yeah.
people know that they could pick that up. They're like, that don't feel right. Like it feels like they're just trying to sell me on whatever is hot right now,
Yeah.
and that's why it's so important for small businesses as well as large to really understand their customers and understand what it is that they need, what they want, what's their pain points.
Mm-hmm.
What do they think about? What do they really care about, even outside of your product and how it can serve them?
Yeah.
Because we saw that a lot last year with the whole Black Lives Matter movement that kind of boomed, and then all these businesses all of a sudden were like, "Oh, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter."
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like, but do they? Because your practices before this didn't tell us that Black Lives mattered.
Oh yeah, oh
You
yeah. You see the little sign on a bunch of stores that used to follow you around the store, and you're like, wait a minute,
Wait a
you
minute,
know.
I don't know now. Right, and so you have to, and that's the thing that I think that not just social media but the immediacy of our communication has brought forth is people can tell the truth from a lie
Yeah,
a lot now. Like it's a lot of smoke and mirrors out here, but people are very receptive, and it's like, no, you're not gonna pull the wool over my eye just
yeah,
to sell me on something. So yeah.
yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the audience aspect of it, which has always been a challenging conversation when talking with businesses about knowing your audience. I guess like my boy Dion used to say, doing the work. That's when you're doing the work. And shout out to Dion, but shout out also to JR. I remember one time JR asked me, "What's your audience?" But here's the thing: JR didn't just ask me; he pressed me on it, and I gave him the spiel, and he was like, "No, no, no. What's your audience?" I literally got frustrated and said, "Look, I'll call you back." You know, it wasn't one of them days for me. So it was like I was having a bad day, and he just kind of, and he came out of a good space. But I didn't really want to think about it at that time. And so I know when I'm consulting, you ask that question, what's your audience? They go by a, like, pretty much a script. It's like, yeah, da, 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 da. But then when you start asking them, no, what are their real needs? It becomes a frustrating conversation. But I'm glad you touched on it because it's so important to start with that.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with your clients and when it comes to social media, how do you get them in the mind frame where they can actually say, okay, this is my audience, these are their needs, and this is how I'm going to start looking at my messaging. Not even delivering it, not even preparing it, just this is how I'm gonna look at it.
That's a great question. So to your point about your friend prodding you, I'm that friend to my clients. And so I try to go, if you ask a person a question, 3 questions deep, you'll get the real answer. Just
Okay.
keep asking them why.
Yeah.
Okay, who is your ideal audience? Oh, it's women 25 to 40. Why? Because they blah 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 blah. Why?
Yeah.
Well, because they're trying to lose weight. They just had, they had a baby and this and that. Why? Well, they don't feel sexy to their husbands anymore. Okay, that's the pain point.
Okay. Yeah.
So really just getting them to understand not just who, because people will give you demographics all day.
Yeah.
Who is your ideal audience? Oh, it's men, you know, getting ready to retire. What does that mean? Men,
Yeah.
men ready to retire. It could be anybody. You know what I'm saying? Anybody. And so, just really digging down. I have a guide that I walk my clients through,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called the Tribe Guide. And my terminology in my business is that you are growing your tribe. And so, who is your tribe? Why should they be a part of it? And why should they be loyal customers and loyal fans of you? What do you have to offer them that will make them keep coming back, and then bring their friends and bring more of your like tribe? And so um digging down not only into the demographics but into the psychographics, into are they religious people? Do they are they college educated? Do they
Yeah.
have kids? Are they family oriented, or could they just care less about it? Are they what are they? Who are they? I know my person. She has a name. Her name is Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you all about Nicole because Nicole reflects me a little bit. And
Okay.
so in my communication, I can be authentically me, because to me, I'm talking to a friend. And a
Yeah.
lot of times my clients end up becoming my friends
Yeah.
because I'm direct, and I'm speaking to them in their language. And so if you understand who these people are, what they care about, even maybe what some of their triggers are, you can avoid some of those landmines, and you can communicate with them, authentically and in a real way. And then when they hear it, see it, experience it, they're like, oh man, this is my person. Like this makes so much sense. Yes, take my money. You have my answer. You are perfect, right?
Okay.
But it's all crafted. I mean, it's not crafted to be fake. It's crafted because you have to be intentional about it. And so
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense. And I'm glad you said psychographics because we've been taught, in school, about demographics. And we always talk about demographics. And I would say the old school way of marketing used to be demographics. It used to be, we'll just, I don't want to use the word red line, but we'll just red line this area. And
yeah,
this is
everybody
how
fits
we're
in the
going to
box.
push to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it used to work before people actually could get in front of people with opinions on such an easy platform.
Mm-hmm.
So now psychographics is what are you thinking at the time? What is actually your emotional state? That's very important. Yeah.
Very, very, especially now, because I mean, I'm even just thinking about myself and people who would fit in my box, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm a Black woman, uh, in my late 30s, college educated. If I stopped there, you would miss me. if I stop there, you know, as a marketer, you could potentially like miss a whole group of people because you're trying to lump everybody in. Like, I mean, I could tell you that, you know, I went to an HBCU, so maybe HBCUs matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you that I'm single. So if you come talking mommy this and mommy that, that I don't hear that. Like,
Yeah.
mommy is not my name.
Yeah.
I'm not married. Many of my peers are, you know, they're married and they have kids. So they're doing the whole, you know, PTA mom thing. That's not my story. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to lump everybody in just based upon, you know, the demographics, you could potentially miss or even offend some people because you're assuming, you're making assumptions about me
Yeah.
that don't even apply. And now I'm like, why are you even talking to me? Because you just assumed that I had two kids in elementary school. Like I don't, you know? So you have to really understand. I mean, and even in this pandemic, we've been segmented more because somebody that, you know, they've been with their family all the time, they may be looking for an escape. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of here, but
Oh yeah.
I've been by myself the whole time. So I may be looking to connect with people. So it's, you know, you just have to really dig into what is making these people move. What do they care about? What are their experiences right now?
Mm-hmm.
It all can shape a decision on buying. And that's
That's a,
ultimately what you want people to do is buy. So
yeah, and that's a great point. And when you're putting out your content, you know, it's in a certain tone. I love what Aaron always says. Aaron Fletcher, he says it's all about context, not
mhm,
as much the content as the context. And
absolutely.
you know, that's a good thing to get, you know, get in your head. It's hard to transition because we come from the days, or at least I come from the days, I'm dating myself, but the days when you had push marketing and it was
Mhm.
all about clever content. Can you make this beautiful looking piece of material that you put out and miraculously people buy?
Mhm.
Now, see, that was in the days when it was push marketing. So it was, we'll just beat you into submission. We'll keep pushing this advertisement till you're going to buy because you
Yeah.
don't think there's any other choice or it's subliminal. But with today, you can turn it off. I mean, it's a matter of clicking an X, click,
Yep.
you know, or
Yep.
swiping. Nowadays, it's really
Behavior.
swiping.
You
Yeah,
know, the algorithms will, you know, put stuff in front of you before you know, based upon
yeah.
your own behavior. So, yeah.
So once you understand their behavior, then you can say, okay, they like videos like this.
Mhm.
You know, they love. I mean, you're in media. Look at the music business nowadays, and nobody may have ever said this, but nowadays the quickest way to get your song exposed is to have somebody create a dance and a challenge.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, you've got
Yep.
millions of people that heard your song that never heard of
Yeah.
you before.
You know,
And
TikTok.
yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, my little one TikToks all the time, and there's a lot of songs I've never heard
Mhm.
that I have to YouTube after watching, you know, and I'm like, who is this again? And I YouTube it. Now
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that artist. And some of them I've even started to look at their whole catalog afterwards. Like, oh, okay, well,
Mhm.
let me see what else they got. And it's amazing because if they didn't do that back in the days, the old school radio play and so forth and
Yeah.
so on, that doesn't work now.
Nope. You had to know a DJ. You had to get in good, make sure you got your, you know, 45 or your mixtape or
Yeah,
whatever. And then, you know, back in the day, people were paying people to get on the radio, and then they, you know, the FCC stopped that. So it's a whole evolution. And the gatekeepers are no longer the gatekeepers.
exactly.
So I love it. I love the space that we're in. I remember being in grad school, and I tell people, I feel like that was the shift for me
Mhm.
because I'm in the generation that is analog and digital. And
Yeah,
so I remember, you know, channels 2, 5, 7, and 9 being the only stations that you could turn to. You
yeah,
had to get up with, you know, and turn the knob on the TV. I remember all of that. I remember having a long cord on the TV. I mean, on the telephone from the kitchen, and mama pick up the phone, and you hear the numbers beeping in
Yep.
the back. And you're like, "Bye, I'm on the phone." I remember that. But I also remember when it
Not the party
shifted.
lines.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I remember all of that. But I also remember when it shifted to digital, and then the algorithm really started coming into play. Because in the beginning of the internet, it was just a free for all. Like everybody was here, and if you found me, it was great, and it
Yeah.
wasn't billions of websites out here, and everybody wasn't competing for space. But I remember studying it, and it was at the point when it was like, okay, everything is shifting from analog to digital. At some point, the way that we consume content is not going to be the same. I was still, the reason I went to grad school, honest to God, is because I wanted to be a general manager of a TV station.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking about YouTube and Hulu and Netflix and all of this stuff then, because it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Um, Crazy thing about it is I actually wrote a business plan while in grad school for my thesis program to create something that was similar to Hulu, because I saw the distribution channels changing. But it just democratized media. It democratized our marketing. It made a level, even playing field. I could put something out today, and with the right, marketing and strategy behind it, I can compete with the McDonald's. I
Yeah.
may not have their budget, but I may get the same views at the, you know what I'm like? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. So yeah.
You're right. You get in front of the right influencer, and next thing you know, you're the next thing. I remember when I was consulting with Turner and some of their properties, um, them and the other giant networks, they were the linear whales, were trying to figure out how to compete with Netflix. And this was when Netflix was just like, they had just defeated the giant Blockbuster,
Oh
you
man,
know,
that broke
and
my heart.
everybody,
I'm a Blockbuster kid. I loved
you
Blockbuster.
used to like going, paying them late fees, didn't you?
Ooh, look, I might be the reason they went out of business on that.
Oh man, I watched a documentary about
I
the
did too.
last Blockbuster.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was
and
good.
everybody was chasing Netflix because Netflix was like, "Hey, we're gonna put this on, and we're gonna stream it, and we're gonna license things." Their model was so different than the old school way of television and media, and these giants weren't at a position where they could transition as quick.
Mm-hmm.
So once we
Mm-hmm.
started to get into the streaming world, they were so, I guess you would say, stuck in their ways that
Yeah.
why should we go with mobile
They
device?
didn't believe in it. They didn't believe in it at first.
Yeah,
And then if you think about the ABC, CBS, NBCs of the world, all of those companies, they're owned by, it's like 5 or 6 large media companies that own all of the major media. That's
yeah,
like a huge, 2-ton freight train that you have to stop on a dime and turn around.
yeah,
It ain't happening. Netflix was like Tesla, like,
yeah,
okay, I'm
yep,
going this way. And
yep,
they still, they are big now, but they still have the capacity to do some quick and nimble turn. You see that even with at first they weren't doing original content.
yeah,
Now it's like Netflix is not only a distribution channel, but they're also a content creator.
yeah.
And I think that that's huge. I think it's
And
huge.
it's amazing how many other networks now are trying to come out with original content.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because even some of the giants of our day, HBO, now is coming back out with original content. Because that was
Yeah.
one thing that put them on the map, and they stopped doing it. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, we got everybody on HBO. And it was interesting because now the smaller networks that used to be a part of the big networks are breaking themselves away. So the
Mm-hmm.
HBO is like, you don't need, these guys. You can go direct to us, pay us $15 a month, and you can have us. And it's just basically, just broke apart the giants.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the giants, I don't think, understood their audience, and
Oh
the
no.
audience changed
Because
because
they always had an audience. You didn't have to understand people when, like, for years and years all we had was you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
give us what you want. That's called programming. They
Ex-
give us what they want us
exactly.
to have. It's like, okay, we know you're gonna watch. We know that, your grandma's sitting at home. She gonna watch these stories.
Yep.
Victor Newman is gonna be on here for 50 years and she ain't gonna care. We give you what you want, or what we want you to have based upon
Exactly.
what our budgets are. But even now, it's like, even going to your point, thinking about like Roku and some of these channels, people like you and me can get on TV right now for little or nothing
Yeah.
compared.
I used to have a Roku
Yeah,
channel. Me and a partner of mine for our radio station used to have a Roku, and it was very inexpensive to do it,
yeah,
and you could be up within a week and
mhm,
have your channel, and it literally be on everybody's Roku device.
yeah,
It's changed the game, and the way content's consumed has changed so much. I laugh at my nephews and nieces because you tell them, but I got this big screen TV, and they're like on their phone. Now I
yeah,
watch it on this.
yeah.
It's like they don't even want to watch it on a TV anymore. So if you're not transitioning and making it mobile friendly, you're
Oh
missing a
yes.
whole new audience.
And that's huge. That is huge for marketing. I mean, that's a part of like all of the courses that I have courses on my site that I sell and things like that. But all my courses, I'm telling people, make sure your stuff is mobile optimized,
Yeah.
because if not, you're missing like 60% of the audience. Everybody has this in their hands 24/7. I mean, you see how easy I just pick mine up, and ain't
Oh yeah.
nobody calling me. Half the time I'm not even talking on the thing. I'm doing 10 million other things. The amount of time that I actually talk on the phone, think about that. That I actually talk on the phone is probably minuscule compared to all the searching, the watching, the streaming, the
Yep.
you know, surfing, and
Replying to emails and messaging.
all of that.
Yeah.
And so if that even goes into, our original conversation about the audience. If your ideal audience is on their phones all the time, why are you positioning yourself somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Capture people where they are. And
Yep.
so, like I said, it's really leveled the playing field. I think it's just interesting to watch because, like I said, I remember before all of this, like some of my younger cousins and all of that, they don't know the stuff that we talk about like back in the day, having having to have. I remember when the remote control used to plug into your TV. It really wasn't a remote. It like
Yeah.
you had the
Yeah.
box that plugged
Yeah.
that plugged into your TV. Um, Things like that. And it's like now the world has just completely opened up, and anybody can just become a promote their business or become a media star, or overnight success because of something that went viral. And most of the time, the question I get most often from people is, how do I make something go viral? And I
Yeah.
tell them, on accident.
Yeah.
These people are not always planning to go viral. A
Yeah.
lot of this content, it just blows up. And so,
And even the viral thing as a business, because I get to ask that question as well. As a business, you have to look at behind the curtain though and say, out of the viral content, how much money did they make?
yeah, absolutely.
It might have went viral, but it doesn't mean that they made a dime off of it.
Yes.
They just became popular.
Yeah.
And
And data counts, data matters in all of this stuff. Like, even going back, to talking about how things work and whether you're actually connecting with your audience or not, and all the, like you said, go behind the curtain, look at some of that data, look at your analytics, and realize that, you know, I saw a girl maybe about 2 years ago. She had she had over 1 million followers on Instagram. I don't know if you remember this story, but she had over like 1 million followers on Instagram. She had somehow captured, I don't know if it was bots, I don't know what it was. And she got this influencer deal, and they wanted her to sell 15 t-shirts. She couldn't sell 15
15 t-shirts?
t-shirts to
Wow.
1 million followers. And that just goes into, who is your, Like, okay, it's great that you have 1 million followers. It looks good. It's, to me, those are vanity metrics, because I
Yeah.
don't care, if I have 1,000 or 100,000 people. If I got 100,000 people and only 1,000 of them are buying from me, I don't need the other 900,000.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for what? They're just there crowding up my algorithm in my space.
Yeah.
So you got to know who you're talking to, dig in and figure out, who's converting and all of that other stuff. Because a lot of that stuff is just vanity. And
Yeah.
okay, it goes viral today, and then tomorrow nobody remembers you.
And that's a beautiful point too, that it's all about vanity metrics. And I've said in my share of meetings, to where you're pretty much having a all-out debate about the vanity metrics, and it's like, that doesn't matter. And they're like, no, it matters. We need da 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 da. We need, and it's like, but at the end of the day, they're not customers. They
Mm-hmm.
look good, they make you feel good at the meeting, but they're not customers.
Yeah.
And getting over that hurdle is hard because they're so used to looking at that, because they've been programmed, your
Mm-hmm.
word, programmed by the social media networks, that's important. The
Mm-hmm.
platform says it's important, but here's the thing I like to always share. Understand where you're getting the information from and what they have to gain or lose by telling you.
Hello. That is
You know,
so key.
yeah.
That
They
is so
want you to
key.
focus on vanity metrics so you'll pay to get advertisement, to get in front of more people, to
That's
get your
right.
numbers up in engagement.
That's
It's
right.
it's genius when you see Facebook ads and you paying for engagement. It's like, really? You just paying for people to just look at your posts,
Yeah.
and they're putting it in front of anybody that's commenting on posts,
Yeah.
which most of them aren't even in the country or your age range or anything. They just engage it, and you feel
Mm-hmm.
good because somebody gave you a fire. Oh, that's
Woo!
fire. But you're selling vacuum cleaners, and
Right.
they're like, fire. Anybody that puts fire on a vacuum cleaner is not buying vacuum cleaners.
That's funny. I see that a lot in, like, I don't want to call any brands out because I don't want to get us in trouble. But it's like these health, I'm gonna say these health brands, okay? Like
Yeah.
health and wellness brands. And it'll be like all like 10 different influencers or whatever. And I guess they're, working with them on their behalf, as affiliates, and they'll come up with these pages. And then you look in the comments, and all the comments are like, yeah, I use this and I lost X amount of weight. Oh yeah, I did this and I did it. It's like, okay, y'all are gaming. Like, stop
Mm-hmm.
it. Because everybody on this post did not have a good review of this thing. And and everybody on this post didn't actually use it's just you have to be very savvy to navigate this to navigate
Exactly.
this space and to know what's real and what's fake. I had a lady call me on a client the other day. She's like, I got scammed by y'all. I'm like, scam? Like, as soon as somebody says scam, my antennas go up, because I listen. I don't want my name attached to nothing to do
Hold
with
up.
scam.
My attorney's on speed dial. I'll be like,
Man, I'm
okay.
like, wait a minute, what? Like, let's talk, because somebody say scam on the internet and everybody thinks you're a scam, and then
Yep.
whatever. And so I'm talking to her, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm asking her, she's like, I just sent what she sent me $1,500 to somebody in the company that was talking to her in the company's name.
Mm.
And I'm like, we would never ask you for $1,500 on a in a comment on like a YouTube video or something.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so she sends me the screenshots, and I'm like, come on, lady. She's like, I realized afterward. And I'm like, you have, like, we got to be more savvy. We gotta read and pay attention to what's happening. Because how many $1,500 did this person get just by being in the comment, like deep down in the comments,
Yeah.
somewhere that we wouldn't have even seen? And so a lot of this stuff is just gaming the system and working it the best that they can.
It really is. It really is. And if you're not looking at why is the narrative being creative and what it is, you start to be like, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what's going on? It's funny. I got a email last 2 weeks ago. Actually, I got a message first, instant message, and they somebody trying to game, And I was like, okay. So they tried to ask me for some money to help them and their family overseas in Africa. And they were hungry. And he showed me pictures of him and his family. And he's like, we're hungry. First of all, if you're hungry, you got a cell phone and can send me pictures.
Man, all the way across the Atlantic, and you asking me about being hungry?
Yeah, you might need to turn off that cell phone bill and buy some food, you know.
Wow.
So after that, then he hits me up on WhatsApp. And he's like,
WhatsApp is a good one for scams.
Why are you not responding? Then he sends me an email. And he throws in Jesus. In Jesus' name, we are suffering and you don't care. And I'm like, I don't even know you. How you get my information? And you're good at scraping because you got all my information, all my contacts.
Wow.
But it's not like we work together. It's not like we built a relationship. I don't even know you. And you're sending me photos. I'm looking like, dude, if I send you the money, then it's my fault I got taken advantage of.
Exactly. And it's I watch, especially with, Facebook and stuff. I tell people all the time, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And when we're on Facebook, we are the product. We are what they're selling. Yeah. Our data is what they are selling. Yeah. You get on there free and they know where you're going. They tracking you. They know what you're talking about. They know what you like, what you don't like. And so they continue to feed you that same stuff. I don't know if you saw, what was that movie? It was on Netflix recently about Facebook. It wasn't called The Social Dilemma is the name of the movie.
You're talking about, you froze.
Uh-oh, I'm here. Are you here? They must have heard me talking about them.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I hear you.
It froze just that quick.
I know. Right. I'm like, look, are they tapping our line? No. But The Social Dilemma is the movie.
Great movie.
Yes. And it really, it's stuff that I knew, but it really opened my eyes to how we're fed a lot of these things. And we're, people are making money off of us and we don't even realize how deep and how wide it goes. But it just goes to, the end user being savvy in how they're using social media and what they're buying and what they're, clicking on and everything. Because
yeah. I mean, that's a great movie. I actually speak at conferences and I speak about marketing automation. And even though you talk about marketing automation, you know how it works and you see it in action, watching that movie still opens up your eyes and be like, wow.
Wow. I mean, I got off the movie and was getting ready to turn off my GPS on my phone. And I'm like, I don't want to, I need to get out of this matrix.
But you're so surprised at how many times that something will be said on the television and your phone automatically will turn on, or your Google Home will actually turn on, or and you're like, wait a minute, nobody was even talking to you.
Nobody was talking to you.
Listening, it's always recording, and it'll turn on. And all of a sudden, it's saying, okay, you like that. That's what you like? Okay. All right.
Yep. And it's going to keep feeding you what you like. And, I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. I think it has some good points to it.
Yeah.
But even when you think about the negative side of it, who is actually programming this stuff?
Yeah.
A person is behind it, and all people have biases.
Yeah.
Right. So, if in your mind as the programmer, and this is just, very base example, but if in your mind as the programmer, everybody that likes to listen to Tupac is a gangster and they are a threat and they are part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
Now I'm in my house, I'm listening to Tupac. Alexa hears that I'm listening to Tupac. Now I'm flagged as a potential threat.
Yeah. I mean,
like, how simple is that?
It happens. It happens because I remember one day I was talking with some colleagues of mine and my Amazon stick has your recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And all my recommendations were blaxploitation films. And I'm like, I've never watched a blaxploitation film on Amazon before, ever. Yeah, I don't remember the last blaxploitation film I've watched. I think it was Black Dynamite or something. It's like, I'm like, it's not something I watch often. So I'm like, okay, how come this is on my recommendations? All of them with like blaxploitation. So I asked my boy Avery, and I was like, Avery, man, I was telling him about it. I said, what's on your Amazon? He said, this week, all my stuff's been blaxploitation stuff. So I asked Jasmine, I was like, what, have you noticed that? And she was like, yeah, I noticed it. And it was interesting because I'm like, how come all of a sudden we're all getting this? It's not because blaxploitation is coming back in style. It's not, because I've been watching a lot of it. It's basically they flagged me and they were like, oh, okay, he's black. Okay, this is what he likes.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that stuff. I mean, even on Netflix, it's like, what is it, Black Stories or something? It's like they curate that little catalog or whatever, and it'll pop up as soon as you open it. It's like, okay, all right. So let me see if I can mix this thing up a little bit. Maybe I need to, watch some rom-coms or something with.
They say it's based on your behaviors, but I'm like, this isn't the behavior I've been on.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that, like I said, in the wrong hands, which I mean, honestly, when you think about a lot of this, it probably is in the wrong hands. It can turn dangerous. I think a lot of what we're experiencing right now is a result of that. The actual day-to-day lives that we're living is a result of that, and that bias that is whether it's unconscious, conscious, whatever. We all have, a slant. We all have experiences. And that's how all this content is being served up to us based upon somebody had to program it. Somebody had to, put it up there some kind of way. And then down the line we get it, and then we find it and we think that it's true because it was there. Oh, that's gotta be true. And then you talk to your friends in your circle, they saw the same thing. Oh yeah, that's true. And it's like, it's a whole world out here that sees something completely different.
I remember talking with a friend of mine about the March on the Capitol. And our opinions were night and day. It was interesting because he comes from a different background and a different side of the coin. And he literally was like, they were peaceful. The police were assisting them. And then all of a sudden, everybody just want to lock up these people doing a peaceful protest. And I'm like, which news did you see?
Man, that's what I want to know.
Because I really want to see the footage. Because I'm like, that is so completely different than what I saw. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, you didn't see them breaking the window and storming in and standing on desks? He was like, no. I saw the police removing the barricades so they could do a peaceful march. And I'm like,
whoa.
Which news foot? And we talked about other things. He was talking about Atlanta. And he was we both are in Atlanta. And he was talking about how they were rioting in Atlanta. And I'm like, dude, they weren't rioting. And he's like, oh, that's probably the news you're watching. And I'm like, no, I'm literally watching people I know that's downtown filming, live streaming. They're there. I'm like, what are you seeing? And he's like, yo, they are burning down Atlanta right now. And I'm thinking, which news footage? But that goes to the controlling the narrative. And it's amazing how much media controls people's narrative, and you don't know what's real because you're like, I believe it because it came from a creditable source. But you don't know until you talk to somebody that's got a different vantage point. And they're coming from a creditable source on their side. And you're like, well, which one is real? Unless you're there, you really don't know.
Wow.
It's amazing. And it can happen to your business. You can have somebody say one thing about your business.
Oh, yeah.
People are like, yo, that's how their business is.
That's it. That's it. That's it. I had somebody just yesterday they were asking me about Yelp and about positioning their business on Yelp. And they were like, man, we've been here and we've been serving these people, and we had all 5-star reviews at first, and then we got a couple 3 stars, and now all the 5 stars are like buried, and we can't get the 5s back up there. And he's like, I called Yelp and I reached out to the, help desk, and they were like, oh, that's just how it works. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's how it works, because they want you to pay into their
Yep.
system to
Yep.
advertise so that those 5 stars will show up.
Because if you pay, you can control your
There you
reviews, and
go.
you can remove other people's
There
advertisements
you
from off your
go.
page.
There you
Yep.
go. And so it's like, that's terrible. Like, this company somewhere off in the cloud in the sky is controlling this small business owner's narrative on the ground, and people, that are in town that may want a good sandwich or whatever the case,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we ain't going there. They got 3-star reviews, when in
You know,
actuality.
they had a documentary on that too. I don't know if it was Amazon or Netflix. They had a documentary on how Yelp was gaming businesses.
Wow.
And it's amazing. And I actually know some companies that actually have a person that goes around putting negative reviews on their competitors' stuff. Yeah, it's a part of their game. Yeah,
that is
because
terrible.
it's hard. It's reputation management is expensive.
Oh,
And
yes, it is.
yeah, and it's hard to do. So they're like, okay, put a couple of 2 stars, 1 stars, blah blah blah. They never really verify if the person actually did business with you or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And it pretty much buries, not only it hurts your business that way, it buries your SEO, it buries your ranking.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you can boost your company by trashing somebody else's company.
That is horrible. And it's crazy, because as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because I know SEO, and I do SEO for my clients. But then when I guess from my own mindset and my standpoint, like, I wouldn't do that to somebody. Like, my mind doesn't go there. I don't know. I'm not that
Some
much.
people aren't as ethical. Some companies aren't
That's
as
where
ethical.
I'm going. That's where I'm going with it. It's like, how crazy is that somebody like sat there and was like, well, let's just trash everybody else. And I mean, I guess, yeah, that's plausible that somebody would think that, but it's like, man, that's just crazy. And now everybody else is like moving at
It is amazing because they actually have people that is what they're known for. Wow. So they say, because when I had to contact Yelp about a client and try to figure this out, they actually say that there are certain people on the list they'll flag. If they get a review from this person, they already know this person is that known for that position. That's what you're paying them for. Wow. And they go around write negative reviews on people's profiles, and people pay them, and they most of them are real inexpensive, paying $5-10. They'll write a trash review, whatever, easy money for them. And they started saying that they've identified them and flagged them, but we know it still goes on, Yeah. But it's a shame, because unfortunately, if you see it, the truth is always the first thing that comes out. Going back to your point of journalism, it's not if it's true or not. Like, if I was to slander somebody, then I don't care how much you prove that it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. In the public opinion, you're guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the sad and scary part about all of this. It's like, what it goes back, what is true at this point? We don't, like, do we know what's true? Do we know what's real? Do we know what's true? Unless you personally experience that thing. And it's just funny, because I remember being in journalism school and writing stories, learning how to research, learning how to investigate stories and stuff. And you had to, if you didn't come to the table with at least 3 sources that like could actually, not hearsay sources, but like real live sources that were there, that saw it, that experienced it, that could corroborate this story, like, you can't run that story. Now it's like, hey, what happened over there? You was just, okay, that happened. Yep. And it's all based upon perception and somebody's perspective, because like you said, to one person, a riot is, a peaceful protest, and to another person, people shattering windows and tearing down the Capitol is peaceful. So it's like,
yeah. And it's funny because probably from his footage, they probably didn't even show that part. They probably showed like while they were outside
right,
before
walking
it
down the
got
streets,
started.
something.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. And now the creditable sources aren't even the news sources. Anybody with a camera and can get on social becomes a
Yep,
creditable source.
yep, yep.
And it's amazing.
It
It's
is.
amazing how the stories can get told.
Wow. That's what I tell my business owners that I work with, when you're doing your marketing, tell your story and spin your narrative. Don't let somebody else tell your story for you.
Yeah.
Always stay out in front of telling your own story. Always get, behind the scenes footage or whatever you got going on. Show them what's going on in your business on a daily basis. Show up. Because if you don't, somebody else will for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Tyler Perry had a quote. He said, live your dream. If not, somebody else will have you live theirs.
That's it.
And that's so true on the stories as well. Because
Yeah.
everybody's out there and they want to be famous,
Oh yeah.
So in order to be famous, you have to have the juicy story for people to follow you, and so-and-so's business is a great business and they're doing good for the community is not a juicy
Yeah,
story.
that ain't a juicy story.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yep.
well, great. Well,
Crazy.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some insights. And, I know we kind of took a few little side turns on the
It's
street,
all
but that
right. The
was good.
conversation was great.
Yeah, that
I
was
enjoyed
good.
myself.
But I mean, to everybody, be sure to understand your audience, know your audience, and like Chanel said, ask those 3 whys. The 3 whys, so you can get to the core of who your audience is, and then look at creating your own narrative. I mean, I think that's the 2 biggest takeaways. Create your own narrative, be authentic, have an authentic, I guess you would say, profile for your company and
Mm-hmm.
yourself, which is a hard thing. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you it's easy because, you listen to what everyone else says your business should be,
Right.
or somebody else's business that you want to be like. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm going on another sidebar. I was watching
It's
Gary
okay.
Vee yesterday, and he was talking to some college kids, and so you know how Gary gets down. His language is unfiltered,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good because that's Gary. But I noticed when the college kids came up to talk to him, he was at one of these Ivy League schools. But now everybody like, yo, what's up, Gary? Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like, now, you would never talk like that with your professor.
Right, right, right.
Never talk like that in your class. But all of a sudden, Gary Vee's on the stage, and you all just unfiltered.
That's funny.
First of all, from the college that you're at, that's not that type of college. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right.
You're in a polo and khakis. You know what I'm saying? You're not that type of person. But you're saying that because Gary's on the stage and you want to be so much like
Like
Gary.
him.
You want
Mm-hmm.
to talk like Gary, act like
Mm-hmm.
Gary. Gary already told you he dropped out. Gary already told you he is so much the other way that people train you to be.
Mm-hmm.
He is so much authentic to himself.
And that's why we love Gary, though. Like, that's why we love him and we buy into. This man started selling wine, being
Yeah,
himself. Like, him and wine don't even go together. Like, his persona and wine, what you would think of,
yeah.
don't even
He's
really
not
go
a wine
together.
snob type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's why we like him. And so that's why you have to carve out your own niche, and you have to, be who you are and show up and be authentically you. That's what people buy into. They don't care about all this fluff.
yeah, exactly. And it's hard, especially when you come from the traditional training of marketing, because
Mm-hmm.
you're taught that if you craft a great message, then you can convince people to do things. And those days are,
Over.
yeah.
Over.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I definitely hope everybody learned as much as I did from this. And, you know, if you ever want to reach out, give them an opportunity to reach out to you, let them know how they can do business with you and help grow their business.
Sure. So if you need some help with your marketing, figuring out who your ideal audience is and all that other good stuff, some strategy. I love to strategize with my clients. You can reach out to me. My website is www.brightgirl.media. And I also am on YouTube. If you just search for Bright Girl Media, you'll find me. I post up marketing tips every Wednesday. So you'll get something new from me, and hopefully you'll be able to learn and grow your business.
Cool. Cool. Well, we'll definitely be keeping in touch and helping each other grow. And, you know, I appreciate you taking the time out to
Absolutely.
talk with me because I always love talking to other marketers that are in the weeds doing it, not, those that are just posing and regurgitating old stuff.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Cool.